place, and what he did to Dathan and Abiram and the sons of Eliab, son of Reuben, how the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, their tents, and everything that followed them in the midst of all Israel. For your eyes have seen all the great work of Jehovah that he did. You shall therefore keep the whole commandment that I command you today, that you may be strong and go in and take possession of the land that you are going over to possess, and that you may live long in a land that Jehovah swore to your fathers to give to them and to their offspring, a land flowing with milk and honey. It's not weak to love your neighbor. There's no strength in taking advantage of other people. There's no superiority in being more intellectual than somebody else. Those things aren't what make you strong. It's obedience to your Creator. Verse 9, and that you may live long in the land that Jehovah swore to your fathers to give to them and to their offspring, a land flowing with milk and honey. Verse 10, for the land that you are entering to take possession of it is not like the land of Egypt, from which you have come, where you sowed your seed and irrigated it like a garden of vegetables. But the land that you are going over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water by the rain from heaven, a land that Jehovah your Elohim cares for. The eyes of Jehovah your Elohim are always upon it, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And if you will indeed obey my commandments that I command you today, to love Jehovah your Elohim and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, he will give the rain of your land in its season, the early rain and the later rain, that you may gather in your grain and your wine and your oil. And he will give grass in your fields for your livestock, and you shall eat and be full. And again, here's a warning. Take care, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. Then the anger of Jehovah will be kindled against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that there will be no rain. And the land will yield no fruit, and you will perish quickly off the good land that Jehovah is giving you. You shall therefore lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your soul, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand. So binding something as a sign on your hand has an indication, or is symbolic of action. So you're going to bind these things up in everything that you do. Everybody's going to know by the things that you do that you are a follower of the one true God. These things have to come out in your actions, and that's why we're told, you shall know them by their fruits. People can blab all they want and say whatever they want. They can appear on the surface to be the most sincere, dedicated individuals. But if you hang around long enough and you watch what they do, you will know whether they're sincere or not. Don't be fooled by what people say, because people are liars, unfortunately. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, right? They're in your brain. Your very thoughts are guided by those principles. That's what keeps you away from sin. Verse 19, you shall teach them to your children, talking of them when you are sitting in your house, and when you're walking by the way, and when you lie down and when you rise. You shall write them on your doorposts of your house and on your gates. So every time you come in your house, you see them, bang. They're in your vocabulary constantly. They're rules of your house. Verse 21, that your days and the days of your children may be multiplied in the land that Jehovah swore to your fathers to give them, as long as the heavens are above the earth. For if you will be careful to do all of this commandment that I command you to do, loving Jehovah your Elohim, walking in all his ways, and holding fast to him, then Jehovah will drive out all these nations before you, and you will dispossess nations greater and mightier than yourselves. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads shall be yours. Now that's quite a promise. Again, in verse 24, every place on which the sole of your foot treads shall be yours. Your territory shall be from the wilderness to the Lebanon, and from the river Euphrates to the western sea. No one shall be able to stand against you. Jehovah your Elohim will lay the fear of you and the dread of you on all the land that you shall tread, as He promised you. See, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you obey the commandments of Yehovah your Elohim, which I command you today, and the curse, if you do not obey the commandments of Yehovah your Elohim, but turn aside from the way that I am commanding you today, to go after other gods that you have not known. And when Yehovah your Elohim brings you into the land that you are entering to take possession of it, you shall set the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are they not beyond the Jordan, west of the road, toward the going down of the sun, in the land of the Canaanites who live in the Arabah, opposite Gilgal, beside the oak of Moreh? For you are to cross over the Jordan to go in and take possession of the land Yehovah your Elohim is giving you. And when you possess it and live in it, you shall be careful to do all the statutes and the rules that I am setting before you today. That's our obligation. That's our responsibility. It's not about rights. It's about responsibility and doing what's right and what your Creator commanded you to do. You're not a victim. You are responsible for everything you do. You can't blame anyone else for it. It's your obligation to make sure you're taking care of it. Turn over to Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. 12:13 says, the end of the matter, the whole conclusion, everything has been heard. All the testimony has been heard. What's the conclusion of the matter? Fear God, keep His commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. It's about duty and responsibility, not about rights and privileges. And that's why this whole society is twisted up on its head, because we've separated ourselves from our Creator and tried to put our own government in place, one of rights and privileges instead of duty and responsibility. And over in Matthew chapter 5, verse 19, it says, whoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Right? So if you're telling people, hey, you don't have to listen to those commandments, you don't have to obey the law, it tells you right here what's going to happen. But whoever shall do and teach, right? Not just teach, but you also have an obligation to do it. The same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And finally, over in Matthew 22, I think this sums it up very well. Matthew 22, 36 through 40. It says, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Right? They're trying to pin him down on some certain things. And Jesus said unto him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. It's all about love for God, obedience to God, and love to your neighbor. You do those things, you will do no wrong to your neighbors, and they won't need any rights to protect them. So let's try to set the example for everyone else by our obedience. We should be lights in the world by our actions and by how we conduct ourselves. So I think that's our obligation. I see a very clear difference between what man has set up and what God has set up.